right, welcome to part 2 of the Spring-Fall 2019 Professional Development at PIT. This piece will be on active learning, or how to stop panicking that the students are running the asylum. Again, I'm Rochelle Chaikin, and this is a presentation that Mark Whitehead and I created for the college. So let's start off with defining active learning. It was first defined by Bonwell and Eisen in 1991 as anything that involves students in doing things and thinking about the things they are doing. Lots and lots of gerunds in that sentence. Students interact with the material they study through reading, writing, talking, listening, and reflecting during class time. Now, the point is that through this interaction is how students learn material. So that interaction piece is very, very important. So when we think of active learning, we have to think about how the students are interacting with the material they're learning. Students are given many opportunities to clarify, question, apply, and consolidate new knowledge. Students do not exclusively sit passively taking notes. There's always going to be a time and a place to give notes. Absolutely. But that's only a part of learning. Although lecture is an essential component in many classes, active learning enhances the lecture format but doesn't replace it. So again, these are techniques that we want you to consider applying to your classroom, not as a mandate, but as an opportunity to improve the transfer of knowledge. Active learning helps students to ascend Bloom's taxonomy from remembering and understanding to analyzing and creating. And if you're not familiar with Bloom's taxonomy, it is an interesting read, and I'll send along some information about it because it helps us understand how we as humans are learning, what we have to do to get to the point of understanding it thoroughly. So some examples of active learning include group discussions, problem solving, case studies, role playing, which by the way can be very, very fun if you have a extroverted group of students, journal writing, brainstorming and learning groups, debates, games, and responding to writing prompts. So there's a variety of things you can do, and obviously in each of your specific programs you can look for more research that will demonstrate what kind of activities work best. So some of the benefits of active learning: it improves critical thinking skills, especially when interacting with the material and other people in the class, because people have to kind of make those jumps and leaps from one piece of information to another piece of information. It increases the retention of new information. On average, during a lecture, students will remember approximately 20% of what they heard. But the more they interact with that information, that number will skyrocket. It increases motivation, improves interpersonal skills, creates more collaboration, increases a student's confidence as they see improvement, and provides different ways to engage students' interests. So when we think of active learning, it's the opposite of just sitting there and staring at your teacher. There is even a sense of terror when the teacher starts asking questions and demanding that students interact, but that terror will eventually transform itself into confidence because they're beginning to interact with the material, and the more they're interacting with the material, the more they are understanding the material. So there are 4 basic elements of active learning. Number 1, talking about and listening to what they have learned. So when you teach something to your class, your understanding of the topic increases exponentially each time you teach it. So the first time you taught a class, whatever it was, your very first class, whether it was 5 years ago or 20 years ago, that terror, that horror in your own heart of, I'm going to screw this up, I'm going to be an idiot, all of those things change over time because we become more comfortable with the material. And it's the same concept for students. When they have to explain it either verbally or in writing, what they are learning, they learn it more effectively. It's really why essay exams are seen as a great way to get a student to understand material, because they have to teach it back to their instructor. When a student knows that they will have to discuss or write about a topic, they also tend to listen more attentively. So if they know there's an assignment coming up, then they're going to be a little bit more, wait, we have to know this? Oh my God. Writing about what they have learned. This provides a means for students to process new information in their own words. It also appeals to an individual who prefers to learn independently. There are some of us who the concept of group work makes us shudder and hide under our desks. However, this is also not a way to brain wash anyone into writing or forcing their students to write if it's not applicable to your class. But it is a great way for students to learn, and there's lots and lots of research about this, and if you're interested, I'd be happy to send it to you. Or discuss it. We can have an active learning experience. So let's talk about a class like math or chemistry. They get a problem wrong. Why did they get it wrong? Have them write it down and explain why they did it wrong and what the right way would be. Again, it sounds like a horror show in some ways for a student to have to do that, but it's really the best way for them to rewrite the error in their own mind. Number 3, reading about what they've learned. Active learning exercises such as summarizing can help students process what they've read and help them develop the ability to focus on important information. So when we look at reading, it's not just the act of reading. Reading is for some people, very passive activity. But the way people can learn to read by writing marginalia notes, by annotating information, get rid of that highlighter, that's a mess, but actually having them interact with the text on the page is going to change the way they're interacting with the concept of reading. And finally, 4, reflecting on what they have learned. Allowing students to pause for thought during a class and use their new knowledge to teach each other or to answer questions on the day's topics is one of the simplest ways to increase retention of information and ensure transfer of learning. The other thing is, when students get to interact in a class, you get a team environment, and a team environment is going to be much more entertaining and collaborative than a whole bunch of people just sitting there quietly staring at you or the clock, whichever one is in their sight line. So when this becomes part of the routine at the end of a class, your students will get used to the process, and that's what it's all about, is getting acclimated to the process. Putting your toe in, then your foot into the pool, and then your whole leg, and eventually diving in. Because as you become more comfortable with these topics and these concepts for teaching, the students will become used to your style, because style is evolving, and it should be evolving forever. So let's talk about how we plan an active learning activity. So first, ask yourself some questions. What is the objective of this lesson? What is the course learning outcome that is connected to this lesson? Will it be an individual activity, a paired activity, or a small group activity? When will you run the activity? At the beginning, middle, or end of the class? Will there be a writing assignment or just brainstorming and discussion? Will something be turned in, and will it be graded? Again, keeping in mind, going back to that flipped classroom model, it's better to assign the value of the work they do that reinforces the material. And most importantly, what resources do you need for this activity? Some successful strategies for active learning. Be creative. Some folks are so amazing and creative, and they've got Pinterest pages that are a work of art. Others of us are just very linear thinkers. So if you're not creative, go online and do some research. Start small, build a portfolio of active learning assignments. Collect feedback on these assignments. Review it, change activities as needed. If you go in with a new activity and it just doesn't work, don't give up on it. Change it, fix it, make it better. Use questions from active learning assignments on your exams. If a student has a conversation in a class about a topic and then you put a similar question on the exam, there's going to be a linkage of memory there, theoretically, if they remember. However, the point is that this repetition is how we build memory. Share ideas with colleagues. And, for folks who are on campus and seeing each other every day, it is an excellent opportunity. If you are not somebody who's on campus all the time, or you're an online instructor, there are a lot of communities online that you can go and see what other people are doing. And it is a fountain of just wonderful stuff out there. And of course, there's some dumb stuff, but there's also some awesome stuff. So it's a little bit of just seeking it out. Incorporate active learning as a regular part of your course, including graded assignments, and assign random, let me always enhance that word, random pairs and groups. Don't always let friends work with friends, because then you end up having people who are spending more time socializing than working. And this way, when you're assigning these random pairs or groups, you can also put certain personality types together. You want an extrovert and an introvert working with maybe somebody who just seems like they're not interested, because then you're going to have different kinds of personalities, which simulates the real world more than anything else. So, of course, one of the impediments to success is student resistance. So we want to overcome that. And we want to start to overcome that on day one when we start active learning in the classroom. We're going to use it day one, you're going to use it frequently, and you're going to explain the connection between the assignment and the purpose of the active learning. So, don't just assume the student understands there's that connection. You have to sometimes spell it out for them, because they don't know this information. They don't know it at all. So as the person who is delivering the information, it's your responsibility to also explain the connection. Give clear instructions with a specific time allotment. Be specific. Don't just say, I'd like you to have this done by the end of the term. Give them a date, a time. Be specific, because that's one of those issues when students don't understand the very specific parameters. It's very clear that they're not going to do as well. Group dysfunction is a sign that the students need to learn collaboration skills, which can be an active learning assignment in and of itself. So you also have to examine, how much collaboration have these students done with one another. A group of individuals who are in their late 20s are going to have a much more collaborative perspective because they've been working in the real world for 10 years. Whereas an 18 or 19-year-old, nothing against them, but they've only experienced group projects in high school, which, if my memory serves correct, were a nightmare in and of themselves. Plan your activities in an organized, coherent manner, and if they seem pointless to the students, they won't have any value. So make sure that, again, they understand the connection. And intervene and help a group or individual who is struggling. If they're struggling, they need your help. That's what you're there for. So you want to think about lesson planning from an active learning perspective. First, and again, I'm going to do the 4 Ps, I know. What's the point? Decide on the goal of the activity, the purpose, determine the outcomes you expect of the students. What is the course learning objective and the outcome you are seeking? The process. Identify the procedure they should follow and the period. Set a time limit for this activity. Sometimes, especially in composition classes, we have students spend the first 10 minutes or 15 minutes of a class writing to get them kind of warmed up and to the understanding the writing connection to what we're doing in the classroom. Now, one of the nice things about the wonderful world of technology is there's lots and lots of apps out there for active learning. I'm not going to go into a tremendous amount of detail, but there are a gazillion of them if you go to your iTunes or Google Play stores. So get Kahoot, and that allows you to turn your class into a game show. It's great for reviewing for exams if you do that. Study Blue is an app that allows teachers to create flashcards, study guides, and quizzes with optional audio. And students can create their own flashcards. Loom is a screencasting tool that lets its users record audio, video, browser windows, or entire screens in Google Chrome. The orientation process is very thorough. And again, these are all things that are available for free. And then if you go to YouTube, there's probably 1,000 videos that'll show you how to use these particular apps. For iPad users, there's Show Me, which basically turns your iPad into an interactive whiteboard. The EduCreation iPad app makes it simple for students to and teachers to create multi-page presentations or lessons that can be shared easily. And again, some people really get into that whole editing videos and audio, and they really enjoy that kind of stuff. That's great. Let them use that kind of thing. And then you have some web tools, PlayPosit, which allows you to do all kinds of video editing. And again, for those of you who really enjoy those kinds of activities, there is a world of fun stuff you can do out there. Smart Exchange is a website where instructors can download interactive resources. The site provides games, lesson plans, and even virtual workspace templates to facilitate interactive learning. That little university in New Haven, Yale, has a website with outstanding information about active learning, and the link will also be in the PowerPoint you're provided. Now, this is the end of the second part of today's or this spring-fall professional development. The third part will be on positive psychology and incorporating that. So as you can kind of see, what we're trying to do with this presentation is provide you with a series of functioning tools in the classroom that will improve learning and improve student attitude and interaction in the classroom. So thank you, and stay tuned for part 3 of an exciting presentation.